While Christian apologists claim that they have an abundance of solid evidence for their religion, they routinely fail to produce truly convincing proof when pressed. It's at this exact point of intellectual exhaustion that they pull out a strange, desperate argument, believing it will do the trick. Pascal's wager. Modern high-profile apologists such as William Lane Craig, Peter Kreeft, and Dinesh D'Souza frequently deploy variations of this argument. They use it as a psychological safety net to convince skeptics that even if they have intellectual doubt about Christianity, choosing to believe in Christianity is the only sensible, logical path forward. What is Pascal's wager? Formulated by the 17th century French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal, the wager treats the question of God's existence not as a matter of historical or scientific proof, but as a game of high-stakes probability. Pascal framed the decision to believe or not believe as a straightforward game of risk and reward. His argument goes like this. If you believe in the Christian God and He exists, you win everything, eternal life in heaven. If you believe in the Christian God and He does not exist, you lose nothing. You simply lived a moral, structured life and die a neutral death. If you do not believe in the Christian God and He does not exist, you win or lose nothing. If you do not believe in the Christian God and He does exist, you lose everything. Eternal damnation in hell. Based on this gamble setup, Christian apologists argued that the only rational, pragmatic choice is to bet on God. Even if the probability of God's existence is incredibly low, the expected value of eternal heaven is infinite, making the gamble appear completely risk-free. But by reducing faith to a high-stakes lottery, Christian apologists, inadvertently admit something they don't want to. The intellectual surrender. Despite its popularity among modern Christian apologists, the most glaring meta-crisis of Pascal's wager is it's not an argument for truth. It is a risk management strategy born of desperation. In philosophy, there are two distinct ways to justify a belief. Epistemic justification. Believing something because the facts, data, and empirical evidence point to it being true. Prudential justification. Believing something purely because it is convenient, safe, or carries a reward regardless of whether it is true. Pascal's wager completely abandons objective evidence. Blaise Pascal himself explicitly stated that human reason and history are entirely insufficient to prove or disprove God's existence, calling the choice a blind coin toss in an infinite chaos. The evidential rule. You do not wager on things that have clear, sufficient evidence. You don't wager on gravity, or you don't wager on the roundness of the earth. The very moment an apologist deploys Pascal's wager, they are making an open intellectual confession. The historical, moral, and physical evidence for my religion is not sufficient to convince you on its own merits. So, I must force you to focus entirely on the consequences of being wrong. Once that missing evidence is admitted, it brings us directly to the messy reality of the wager. The self-deception paradox. Suppose a skeptic listens to a Christian apologist's historical and moral arguments for Christianity and finds them completely unconvincing. Realizing they have failed to prove their case, the Christian apologist deploys the wager. Look, the evidence might not convince you, but you have nothing to lose by believing and everything to lose by ending up in hell. It's better to just believe. Imagine the listener yields to this fear and accepts the wager. They decide to identify as a Christian. What does this say about them? This reveals a profound truth about the newly converted person. They are people who are willing to sacrifice their intellectual honesty out of sheer cowardice. The wager does not make the evidence any better. It just intimidates the listener into pretending the evidence is good. It creates a class of Christians who must actively lie to themselves every single day to maintain their insurance policy. But this manufactured peace of mind completely shatters when we confront another serious problem. The greatest absurdity of this Pascal's wager is that it makes Islam equally rational and equally preferable. If we apply Pascal's exact logical criteria, unprovable evidence combined with an infinite penalty for disbelief, then Islam becomes just as preferable a choice as Christianity. Islam presents a mirrored gamble setup. Believe in Allah. If correct, infinite gain, paradise. If incorrect, zero loss. Reject Allah. If incorrect, infinite loss, hell. By the explicit rules of the wager, a logical gambler cannot simply ignore Islam. If a Christian apologist claims you must accept Christianity purely because of the severity of the stakes, they have legally permitted Islam to enter the room and use that exact same leverage. The math offers no filter to differentiate between the two. If you choose Christianity, you are simultaneously betting against Islam, thereby risking the exact same infinite hellfire threatened by Allah. Pascal's wager does not point to the Christian cross any more than it points to the Kaaba in Mecca. It validates any and every exclusive religion that is terrifying enough to threaten eternal hellfire. By trying to bypass the need for evidence, the Christian apologist accidentally opens the door to their fiercest rival. With the wager thoroughly exposed as a broken gamble, we are left with this final verdict. Christianity's Pascal's wager turns the search for truth into a blind, frantic game of cosmic Russian roulette, where choosing one door means actively betting against thousands of others. In a world of competing infinite threats, the wager proves absolutely nothing, leaves the seeker entirely exposed, and demonstrates that faith requires you to believe something when there is no evidence to support it.